and welcome to a brand new episode of Coming Distractions brought to you by the Nerdpocalypse Podcast. I'm your host, Jay. Okay, guys, we're back. We're going to talk about the new Candyman movie. This one is directed by Nia DaCosta, starring Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, Tiana Paris, Nathan Stewart Jarrett, and Coleman Domingo. So let me read the log line for this, and then I'll get into it. Quote, in the present day, a decade after the last of the Cabrini towers were torn down, Anthony and his partner move into a loft in the now gentrified Cabrini. A chance encounter with an old-timer exposes Anthony to the true story behind Candyman. Anxious to use these macabre details in his studio as fresh grist for paintings, he unknowingly opens a door to a complex past that unravels his own sanity and unleashes a terrifying wave of violence. So, this works as a direct sequel to the original Candyman film. And what I will say about this is you definitely should see the first one. I don't know about the subsequent sequels that I think are not nearly as popular, but you should definitely see the first one. That's the only other one I had seen. You need that to understand fully this film. This is one of the things about the original Candyman film is that while it is a slasher horror film, and a classic horror film, by most accounts of big horror fans, it has a lot more to say than just like, we're just going to kill people, right? So there is a lot more sort of social commentary in the original. That is 100% mirrored in this one. If I had to be honest, I think this one actually goes a lot deeper and gives a little bit more heft to that sort of history of these movies. Just a couple of things that I really enjoyed about it. I think the direction is very good. I think the dialogue is very good. I think this movie, being in the hands of someone who, Nia DaCosta is only 31 years old, she really understood the material, right? Like it is clear that she's a big fan of the original while respecting it and paying, homage to what we saw in the original. She wasn't just copying it, right? And just being like, oh, here it is in 2021. It takes that original story and it expands it in a proper way with respect. The acting by Yahya Abdul, in this one is pretty fantastic. Like that guy is maybe one of the most versatile young actors that we're seeing right now. Like I just think he is so good in everything he shows up in. Watching his character go from this like young kind of gritty artist to this person who is just literally like losing his mind throughout this movie as, you know, things are revealed is pretty pitch perfect for the role. He does a really good job. Like you're so invested in watching where his character goes. Tiana Paris plays his girlfriend. She's equally super interesting as this like kind of like art dealer type of character, and she's his girlfriend obviously. And she's like not buying this whole Candyman thing that gets introduced to them by her brother. He sort of tells a story at a party, and she's like, oh, it's some like nonsense scary story. Even her brother thinks it's nonsense. He was just like goofing around. But as Anthony finds out more about this and gets really obsessed with it, she's supposed to be the sort of the straight man. Like, no, none of this is real. You're acting crazy. And she does a really good job of portraying somebody who is skeptical, but not in that like normal, you know, horror movie trope of like, I'm not going to pay attention to anything that's going on. Like she does notice like these murders are weird and like timed bizarrely and tied to people that she knows and things like that, or that she's met. So she's not like an idiot. And she actually has a great scene later in the movie where, you know, not to spoil anything, but like she's presented with a choice to do something. She's like, nope, I'm not doing that. Like, because the characters are unapologetically black, and black people just would not do certain things that white people would do in horror movies, right? It's a trope, but it's also true for a reason, right? And I appreciate about that. Like this movie is very, very black. It deals with very black issues of gentrification in this country and things like that. There's literally dialogue about, which is true, dialogue about artists being thrown into these like, you know, these parts of cities, you know, like Cabrini Green, that are very low income after they're, you know, all torn down and stuff like that. They throw these artists and they entice them to go to these areas and basically be the first step in gentrifying it, right? Like they make it a cool area. And then eventually, as the dialogue in the movie is, they get promised, hey, we're going to build you a Whole Foods, right? And then, so like that whole idea is presented and it's also challenged, right? Like it's not that simple. Like who builds these ghettos, right? Like who builds these parts of town to, you know, put poor people in and you know, treat them the way that they are treated. So like the movie does a lot of that. And the connection back to the first one is so good. And if you really paid attention to the first one and watching the trailer for this one, you could probably see it coming, but it works really well when it's kind of revealed. Vanessa Williams is in this, not Vanessa Williams, not light-skinned Vanessa Williams, brown-skinned Vanessa Williams. She returns in this one and her role is pitch perfect. Like she's playing the same character. So, for those of you who know the story, you probably can figure out what happens. But it's really good how it ties to the first one. It works really well. And they expand on the legend of Candyman in a super interesting way that has a lot to say about how Black people are treated in this country. So highly recommend it. Just a side note before getting out of here, Coleman Domingo is also in this. He's the old timer that Anthony meets and he kind of gives the information on Candyman, like tells him about the legend of it and really kind of gets him involved and obsessed with it. Look, Coleman Domingo is amazing. Like that guy is good in everything I've seen him in the last couple of years. Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. I just recently saw him in Zola. Like he's great in everything and he's great in this too. He's always bringing like 100%. So, great cast, really good, strong writing, perfect tie back to the first one. Nia DaCosta nailed this, as a director. Highly recommend. For me, it's a 5 out of 5. I loved it. The one thing I will say is Nia DaCosta is going to be directing Marvels, which is the Captain Marvel sequel. That movie is in really good hands. So I look forward to seeing more from her. So check out Candyman. It's in theaters this week and we will see you guys next time.